Welcome back, everybody. Man, is it good to say that again? I have been dying to get back on this podcast for so long. In a world full of politics and Donald Trump's hairstyle, I'm just ready to talk about what really matters. And that, my friends, is college football. Join with me as always. We have the infamous John Duncan. John, I don't know if you heard this, but we had some new music coming into this. I just want to get your thoughts on that.
We did, Josh. Well, how's it going, buddy? And I hope that our listeners are glad to see us pop up in their feed wherever they are listening to us, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google, whatever. Man, it feels so good to be back, and I hope that people dig the new intro music.
Which is not all that's new.
It's not, so you guys are probably downloading or listening right now and saying, well, these guys are going to talk about playoff expansion and what this means for the group of five, which of course we're going to talk about. But we have some even more exciting news for you guys. The G5 beat has expanded. I would like to formally introduce our listeners to Baker Loy. I got the privilege of meeting him a couple years ago at the New Orleans Bowl when my UAB Blazers actually lost to App State, unfortunately. But, I got to talking ball with Baker. He's a really good guy. But, Baker, welcome to the show, buddy.
Hey, I appreciate it, man. I am thrilled to be here. Can't say that I know what the heck I'm doing other than just sitting here living the dream, loving the camp season of college football, just trying to keep up with expansion and everything going on. But hey, it's awesome. Just to give you guys a little background on myself for the listeners, I'm an App State grad. So like John said, met him at the bowl game a few years back, and I bleed the black and gold, and I will try not to be too homer for my Mountaineers, and hopefully keep everyone up to speed as much as possible.
Yeah, and I know you want Baker because you're just so knowledgeable, especially with the group of five, but especially in that Sun Belt area. So we're just definitely excited to have you on and know that you're going to bring a lot to the show. And as you guys know, it's a lot to cover all five of these conferences. So bringing somebody in that knows what he's talking about is definitely gonna just help us out a lot and just spread that around.
Well, and the thing I'm excited about the most is that you can finally teach me how to say Appalachian or Appalachian State, because a lot of people told me I have not been able to say it right. So
latch the gate, baby. Latch the gate.
All right. Enough said. All right. So yeah.
Yeah, but I just always say keep it simple and just say App State. So, but we know we got a lot of listeners out in Boone, North Carolina. So definitely shout out to you guys. But yeah, so guys, it feels awesome to just be talking some ball with you guys. Share this awesome news about the playoff expanding to 12 teams, hopefully. But not even that. Last year, unfortunately, Josh, we didn't get to do our conference previews because, to be honest, we really didn't think we were going to have a season.
Well, yeah, we didn't know if there'd be anything to preview. So.
Right. But this year, we're going to have that for you guys. We're going to do a deep dive on each conference, 5 episodes, and make sure that you're following or subscribed to our podcast. Like I said, whether it's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google, wherever. And make sure, because starting in July, probably mid-July, we're going to start with the Sun Belt, and you're going to get each week, you're going to get a preview, a deep dive into each group of 5 conference. So we are definitely excited to bring that back this year because, like I said, last year, unfortunately, we really did not think we were going to have a season. At least me and Josh didn't. And then all of a sudden, things just like, oh crap, we're actually going to have a season, which we are thankful for, and thankful that we got a full season in without anybody really getting hurt. But now it just seems like everything is starting to, knock on wood, but starting to get back to normal, and we're going to have us a normal season, boys.
That's right.
Oh, I can't wait. Just full capacity stadiums. Oh man.
Yes.
Can't wait.
And my UAB Blazers getting that new stadium this year, so
that's right.
All right. Yes, can't wait to get in protective, and just can't wait. Just like you just mentioned, Josh, getting in with full crowds, 100% capacity, and just get back to normal.
And shout out
Yeah,
to
no,
all the
also-
G5 programs that are upgrading facilities like that. Keep it coming, baby.
Yes, definitely.
Keep it coming. And John, my favorite part about UAB's new stadium is the our favorite pregame restaurant across the street. So be hitting that up every game.
Yes, definitely. A lot of good choices to choose from for sure. But let's get into business, guys. So we wanted to go ahead and drop this episode before we did our previews because it's huge news. The playoff is officially being recommended to go from 4 teams to 12 teams. I'm sure you guys already know, but we're going to talk a lot about it. We're going to talk about what it means for the group of 5 and a lot of other things. But basically what this format recommendation is that the top 6 conference champions are going to get a lock into the playoff. They're automatically going to make the playoff, and then they're going to have 6 at-large bids. So this, again, I want to stress this was a recommendation. It has not been formally approved. However, most of the people are saying that, and we agree, that this is going to go through. I mean, you go back to COVID last year, the money that was lost from all these games, the playoff, they're smart. They want to make more money. And you know how you make more money? You let more teams in, and that means having more games, and you just get more fan bases excited. Because to be honest, I mean, if you're not Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, you pretty much knew, hey, this is just a good old boy invitational tournament. We're not going to get in. But with them expanding to 12, this, I think, is really good for the group of 5. Is it what we want? No, but is it a step in the right direction? Yes, because at the previous format with the 4, we didn't have a shot. We've had UCF, Cincinnati, multiple teams go undefeated and be well deserving of a spot, but were robbed and weren't given that opportunity to showcase, hey, we belong in this thing. But now that we're getting to 12, you're going to see at least 1. But hell, with that wording of up to 6, I mean, a lot of time you look at this past year. You look at Coastal, and you look at Cincinnati. Both of those teams. Well, Coastal was co-conference champions, but still, I know Louisiana fans. I know I'm hearing you right now. But I mean, that's 2 that we get in last year if we have the current format, which what they're recommending right now. So hopefully we can at least get 2, and maybe, I mean, hey, with 6 at large, you might get a 3rd one in. So we'll just have to see how this goes. Now, unfortunately, we do have 2 more years of the current format, but in 2023, this thing should shoot up to at least 12 teams.
In 2 years, I don't mind waiting 2 years for this, especially since they're making that jump from 4 to 12 and not going to 8.
Right.
2 years, that's chump change.
The key 4 words, boys: seat at the table. That's what we've been asking.
Yeah.
I know it's not everything, but I mean, can we really say it's not what we've been asking for? Because that's first and foremost, that's it. Seat at the table, and we got it.
Exactly. And that's exactly, what this means for the group of 5, that we're finally able to get a seat at that table, and finally able to say that, hey, we do belong with the Power 5. And UCF, Cincinnati, Coastal, I mean, they could have beat some of these Power 5 teams that are in the playoff. So it's definitely exciting just to show that, hey, we belong here. We've been wanting it for years and years since they started the playoff, but now we definitely do get that seat at the table, and hopefully seats plural at the table. So we'll definitely look forward to seeing what that means, for the group of 5 when this thing starts in 2023. Now, the next thing that I wanted to just discuss with you guys, and we wanted to discuss for our listeners, is, there's been some rustling from a lot of our AAC fans, American Conference fans, that they think that they should just get an auto bid instead of an auto bid going to the group of 5. What are your thoughts on that, guys?
Bullshit.
Tell them.
I mean, so you're saying that the AAC should automatically get an auto bid? They would be the only conference out of the Power 5 and G5 to get an auto bid. That makes no sense. None.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it goes back to that whole, Power 6 movement that they've been going, for a couple of years now. And, I mean, they continue to pump that P6 and just think that they're Power 5 or Power 6 conference, but definitely, we kind of talked. I brought this up before the announcement of it saying the top 6 conference. If at the time when we were going to 8, we were thinking that, hey, it's going to be the 5 P5 conference champions, 1 G5 champion, or highest ranked conference champion from the G5, and then an at-large. And
I'm good with that, but it shouldn't just be the AAC in general.
No, but the last couple years, has it been the American team?
Yeah.
Yes, but I agree. I don't think they deserve that. Yeah,
I'll tell you, you want to show that you're the P5, you want to show that you're the P6, you got the chance to right now, because it's literally saying the top 6 conference champions. If you're one of those top 6 conference champions, like, you've proven, hey, you're one of the best 5, you're one of the best 6 conferences. Maybe you are the P5, the P6 of that. Yeah. Like, we'll call you the G5 because that's the name that's been formed. But hey, you're playing with the big boys. You are the big boy at that point in time. You're going to the playoffs.
Definitely. I'm glad we're all in agreement on that. Now, the next question I want to bring up is, even though not G5 related, but what about those independent teams? Is that going to kind of force like a UConn that just left the American Conference to go independent, or a BYU? Is it going to force teams like that to possibly rethink about, hey, maybe we should join a conference and possibly a group of 5 conference? Now, we know Notre Dame. We know Notre Dame's probably not going to join a conference, and if they do, it's probably going to be the ACC. But those other teams, New Mexico State, like I said, UConn, Army, does this kind of force their hand to, hey, maybe we should join a conference with this new thing? What do y'all think?
If it does, the other thing with that is there has to be an opening for them to get in a conference. So, I guess right now you look at that and the AAC lost UConn. Maybe there's an opening there. The Sun Belt, they're down to 10 right now after they dropped Idaho and New Mexico State a few years. But aside from that, in the G5, where's there really an opening right now unless there's some shifting that comes up in the near future? So it's hard to say. But, yeah, you would think that they may be more intrigued by joining a conference.
Well, let me ask you this on the flip side. Do you think there'd be more motivation for conferences to expand now? Because the more teams a conference would get in, that would mean more money, right?
That, yes, but at the same time, like let's look at the American Conference, for example. They lose UConn. UConn says, hey, I just want to focus on basketball and play in the Big East. Did the American immediately go say, oh crap, we need to go get another team or add a couple more teams to it? They said no. We're fine with where we're at right now, and that's just less teams to spread the wealth around. And with this new playoff deal, we don't know what the money's going to look like for each conference. We know it's going to be more money than it is in the current format, but I don't know. I could see them maybe not being motivated to expand. Will the MAC add UConn? Possibly. But, we've talked about it before. I don't think UConn's going in the right direction anyway. They might be dropping down to FCS in the next few years, which sucks for me because, UAB just signed a home and home in the future with UConn. So I definitely don't want to be playing an FCS school in the next few years.
Yeah.
And maybe, and that's one thing we need to find out too. Like, what is the payout structure going to be like? If it's based on how many teams a conference gets in, maybe I don't know.
Yeah, this could be the nail in the coffin for those independent teams that can't find a conference if it comes to that. But we don't know. That's just speculation. But it could be. It could send them to FCS, or they could say, hey, we're done with football because we can't afford it at this point. But it is interesting, talking about the money aspect of it at this point. Like, what's it going to do for expansion? Are you looking at, for your conference, do we want to get better at football? Do we want to add teams that are going to, increase our, our presence when it comes to football and to the playoff? Because we want our top team to beat other legitimate teams. But at the same time, I mean, they could say, well, hey, I mean, all these ADs could say, well, hey, we don't want to split the money with, two more schools. So why would we do that when we can just stay as is and I guess keep the money? So it's right. It's going to come down to that payout structure from the playoff to see if it's worth expanding in each conference, I would say.
Well, and also,
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying also too, maybe some of these weaker conferences, maybe that, if the top 6 conferences are guaranteed a spot in, but you see some of these conferences kind of do some realignment to possibly make their conference stronger so that champion has a better chance of getting in.
Yeah. And here's another one for you too. I mean, I think this is something that could be mentioned. What if these teams that are left in the independent right now, what if they combine with maybe some FCS schools and they form an additional conference,
Yes. Yeah, I could see that happening. Yeah.
Yeah, because, I mean, look, they need a spot, and schools like Liberty have money, but they've found it hard to find a place at this point in a conference. So
right,
it's not the craziest thing to think that could happen.
Well, I'll tell you what, who's licking their chops if that happens, and that's definitely Notre Dame.
Yeah. Well, and, I mean, even like I believe, wasn't it like the Southland or no, the WAC? They're talking about the WAC, forming and possibly coming up as a FBS conference in the future. So, I mean, there could be something to that. I don't know.
Yeah, it'll definitely be something to look and see what happens after this is officially started in 2023. Is what the recommendation says. So we'll definitely have to see what happens in the future for conferences, but I definitely can see it going a lot of different ways. But another thing I wanted to talk about on this episode with you guys is what exactly does this playoff expansion mean for bowl games, and in particular G5 bowl games? Because let's be honest, some of those, the Idaho Potato Bowl, New Mexico Bowl, a lot of these small bowl games, which I think they mean a lot to the programs that make the bowl games. But with this thing expanding, do you guys foresee some of these lower bowls just getting the axe?
I've gone back and forth on this, and I think there will be bowls that definitely get the axe, but I don't think to be honest, I don't know if it'll be some of these smaller market bowls. I think it might be some of these mid-level to upper mid-level bowl games that may have been hosting some of these matchups in the top 12 of the rankings, because now some of those games will be played at home under this new proposal. So I don't know. Like, part of me thinks that these smaller market bowl games might stay around because you'll still have teams that'll go to that. But then for some of these upper mid level bowls, they'll be in the playoff and they'll be playing home games. And
now, I would say though, some of these, I know of at least one in particular in Montgomery, Alabama, that actually hosts 2. Kind of lower level games, bowl games like, the Camellia Bowl and then the Montgomery Bowl. I could definitely see at least one of those being.
No, that makes sense. But I don't know, when you take some of these 5 versus 12, bigger matchups. I mean, are you going to fill those bowl games, I guess, with the lower ranked teams? I mean, I guess you could. I don't know, but
I think it's a catch-22 that's partially going to depend on the bowl contracts when you look at it right now.
Yes.
Because, part of me says that you could take some of those middle tier bowls like you're talking about, Josh, like middle to upper tier, and I guess elevate some of the teams up that maybe, I don't know, we're playing at like the upper lower bowls, if you will, and take some of those teams that were playing at the lowest tier bowl and push those a little further. You could maybe do that if the contracts allowed for that. But I mean, some of them also, generally it's like, hey, we're going to put an AAC team against, a team or whatever. So you can't just go out breaking the contract. Now, again, if the contract's up for renewal, if you want to sell out the ESPN, just let them place teams in the bowl. If you want to do something like that, then, hey, so be it. And that could be what you see going forward. But there's a couple of options.
That's exactly what I was going to say. You bring up ESPN. Let's be honest, guys. What are bowl games there for?
Money.
Money for who?
Money.
The big
ESPN.
brother.
Exactly. Exactly. So it's all going to just depend on what ESPN wants to do. And, I know they have the rights to most of the bowl games. I think there's a couple like the Sun Bowl and another Arizona Bowl that they don't have the rights to, but they basically own the bowl system. Now,
let me ask you this, and I don't mean to get us off on a tangent, but what do you think the chances of a non-ESPN channel coming in and just throwing out an outrageous number for this new playoff format?
Fox.
Ooh,
Fox.
Maybe. Or hey, what if Amazon or somebody that hadn't been in the game, they want to get involved?
Yeah,
They got the money to throw around. What if,
I mean,
like streaming.
Yeah, that would throw a monkey wrench into everything. Sorry, I don't want to, something to think about, something to put out there.
I don't know. I mean, that's a tough one, but I mean, that's still not gonna. I don't know that that's gonna affect, what's gonna happen in the bowl system. But I mean, will it affect the payout? Maybe, because they may have more money.
And that's what we need to look for. We don't know any financial numbers now, but we need to know what money's going to be. We know it's going to be more money involved in the expansion, obviously, but we need to know, like, how is it going to be spread around? Like, does this mean that the SEC gets triple what they're making currently, and then the G5s just barely get a little more than what they were making currently because they get a seat at the table now? I hope not. I mean, we all agree in a perfect world that it should be evenly distributed throughout all 10 conferences, but we all know that's not going to happen. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see how it all shakes out.
Let me ask you this. What do you think about this new system, if it is to go into play here? What do you think about the competitive nature of the bowl games? Do you think it's going to stay as is or increase or decrease?
That's a good question, man. In regards to the G5, or are you talking just whole, like P5 and G, just all the bowl games?
I mean, yeah, everything. Because I mean, it helps us as the G5 in a way to push us into contention to, add at least one team into the playoff where we could, it's almost like a dumbed down version of the NCAA tournament feel where we can be the Cinderella and we can go through and make our run if they don't expect it,
Yeah.
So I mean, that's cool in a way, but also what's going to happen outside of that? Is it going to increase competition levels?
Oof, that's a good question.
That's a great question. I mean, I think it will just naturally because, I mean, like you said, there's a seat at the table now and everybody's going to be fighting for it.
Yeah.
So I think competition all across the board, I think this is a win-win for everybody.
And especially if you go to the bigger bowl games, like we talked about a minute ago, elevating the stage there, you're seeing a team that beforehand, they were playing in that lower tier bowl that now they're maybe on a larger stage. So they're more motivated to go out and perform.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree.
And then one thing, too, I wanted to ask y'all about before we move on is, do you feel like, because I've gone back and forth on this, too, do you feel like, one, that the top 4 seeds should be conference champions? And 2, do you believe that bye week is more valuable than having a home game?
Ooh, yes to the first question. But
Okay.
that second one, I don't know. I still say yes. I'd rather have a bye, but it would be cool to host a game on campus. Because last year, if you look at the current format to last year's season, I mean, you've got Cincinnati hosting Georgia. Like, how cool is that?
That would be cool.
Yes. So, but would you? Yeah, I'd still rather have the bye, but definitely you have to give it to a conference champion for sure. I mean, if you don't, you're going to run into the situation where you've got like 2 or 3 SEC teams getting, buys in the first round.
Fair.
Yeah. So I definitely think that you have to reward and hell, that puts more emphasis on the conference championships. And to be honest, that hasn't meant a lot. Well, it has in some instances, but overall,
not the SEC. It hadn't. Yeah,
exactly. So I just think that adds even more to the conference championships.
Hey, and here's another thing with that. You talk about conference championships. I heard on a show the other day on XM Radio. I think they were talking about conference championship games in general and how they'll be affected by the playoff. Are teams going to be less inclined to, I guess, play their guys in a conference championship? Or are they going to have guys opting out, or are conferences just going to do away with them because it's a chance for your team that's your possible playoff, your playoff go-to there, for them to lose and drop out of it? And I mean, that's scary when you think of like the AAC. If Cincy's there and they're undefeated and they've got a couple of P5 wins already, could they make it, already without that conference championship game win? If they technically are the conference champion, if you don't have a conference championship game and you won the regular season.
True. And it's like, do you want to run the risk of, a lower level, like, AAC team coming to that conference championship? Well, obviously they'd have to be good to make the conference championship, but coming in with an 8-4 record or 7-5, something like that, and then they knock off Cincy, who's like your hope to make,
and they're looking ahead already to the playoff, and they just drop an egg. Yeah,
exactly.
That's such a great point. Like, well, I don't know what you do in that situation,
because the rule as it stands right now, to my understanding, is if you are the conference champion and you're one of the top 6 conference champions, you're in. It's not if you won your conference championship game. So, hey, I mean, who's to say that you can't be claimed the conference champion just for winning the regular season?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's a great point.
I feel like they're going to require the conferences to have a conference championship, because that just adds more,
I hope
fun,
so.
Fun to it. Because we all love March Madness, when you get in those conference tournaments for basketball, and you're like, how the hell did this team make the NCAA tournament? They've got a 12-21 record or something like that, but it's because they won their conference tournament. So it adds fun, and you're also going to have, say, for instance, in the ACC, I know it's a P5 conference, but you've got Clemson that they lose a game and then they lose their conference championship to somebody in the AAC or to the ACC. And what happens is like, oh crap, we really need this G5. We really need, like Cincinnati, for example, to lose their conference championship so we can, have a shot at getting in as an at-large. Because if Cincinnati loses to Temple, then there's no way they get an at-large into the tournament. So it's going to make it just more exciting all around throughout the whole sport, I think.
I agree. And people are worried that it'll diminish the regular season. I don't see it that way. I think it makes the regular season that more important. It's at least in the 6 to 12 category. Like, I mean, they're not going to take a 3-loss or 4-loss team. I mean, I don't think it'll diminish regular season at all.
Right.
And
if you play doubt it makes the regular season more important for the G5 too, because we're all competing for that spot. Which I mean, let's be honest, we're probably not going to get the number 1 conference champion seed anytime soon. So we've got to do everything we can to be in there at the end of the year.
And this is something too that I wanted to bring up. Like with this format, I think it's going to encourage more G5 teams to schedule better games too. I mean, when you look at this year, we've got a hell of a lot of good games. Boise State, UCF. I just think you're going to see more G5 teams, more of the better G5 teams schedule games against the other better G5 teams, but also against better P5 competition. Because you go back, UCF, when they played some P5 teams, they played like Georgia Tech and some teams like that. Like, I feel like it's going to motivate them to try and schedule better.
Oh, absolutely.
Will the started doing that for a while? Inclined to accept that, though? Will they want to schedule those top tier G5 teams?
I think so, because you're going to want your conference to try to get try to be one of the top 6. And I mean, if you're the American Conference, and you want to be a P6, well, you better go out there and schedule like a P6 and try to schedule these games. And like I said, they already are to some extent, but I think more all around is what they need to. And I think they will. I think this will motivate teams to schedule. And from a P5 perspective, I'm hoping that this doesn't diminish the G5 games. I still think they're going to be there. I do think I'm kind of worried about what happens with the FCS games. I don't know, but it'll be something to monitor. I mean, and see what happens. I mean, we see right now we've got games being scheduled in 2030, 2035, probably 2060 or whatever. But it's going to be something to watch for sure.
If we're not dead.
Yeah.
Right. See, and that was the one there was nothing cool about, COVID or anything, but the COVID season, like getting to see BYU and Coastal schedule that game in like a couple days the week
that was cool.
Yeah.
No.
I love that.
I wish we could take, that and do more of that. Like just schedule during the year, try to, and maybe they can. There's actually, let me roll that back. There's no way they can because these things are signed. These are done deals pretty much. So I don't know. I just thought that was cool. So,
and who would have thought College Game Day would end up down there, a few weeks earlier? That's the
right.
Thing. Like,
I know.
That's the exposure we need.
Definitely. Well, guys, anything else on the playoff before we start to get into some name, image, and likeness talk?
Let's start it this year.
All right. Yes, let's go. All right, NIL. Guys, I told you before we talked, I really don't have a whole lot of thoughts on NIL because, to be honest, I still don't know a whole lot about it, about what it means for the G5. But I know you guys said that you both had some thoughts, and share your thoughts. What does name, image, likeness mean for the group of five?
Well, okay. On the whole paying players thing, I'm probably one of the few people on the side where I didn't think there should be a set amount of money being paid to the players every year. I was not a fan of that, but I've always been a fan of this name, image, and likeness type of payout. And from what I understand, you can get paid for your autographs for, if you're a good player, you'll make money, it's just like the NFL. The really good players make a lot of money. People, the not so great players don't, or not as much. And I think it'll be good at all schools. And I think it's great for the G5 too. If you have a really great player that comes onto the, at App State or UAB, a fan's going to pay for an autograph or a jersey or whatever for their favorite player, no matter where the fan is or if the team's a Power 5 team or a Group of 5 team. And so I feel like this is the most fair in terms of paying players, in my opinion, just because, I feel like they have to work for it. They earn it. It's just not, giving out free money, so to speak. And like I said, I may be one of the few people on that side that where it comes to paying all the players, but that's just my opinion.
Well, let me say first and foremost, talk about crazy timing. You've got this expansion thing coming to be on top of the NIL thing that's, been brought up in the past few years. And, oh, by the way, let's throw COVID in last year. Why don't we? So what a crazy time it is to
You're
be,
right.
In college sports, that's for sure. But, I look at it and I say this. I say, okay, how's it going to affect some of these large market players versus small market players? Because it's interesting when you look at market share within certain cities. Like, think about Cincinnati. You got Desmond Ridder out there having to compete with Joe Burrow for putting him on a product or something like that and, getting paid out for it. That's not to say that he won't get that, but that's tough. And then you go somewhere, let's go somewhere like like an App State for me. And you throw one of our better players out there in a small mountain town that, we really don't have any other schools in the western part of the state that are FBS aside from Wake Forest, but no one really pays attention to them in North Carolina, let's be honest. So you throw them out there. They might have their chance to get their name all over the region. Granted, not nearly as many people around that are paying attention because you're not in a large metro area like you would have in Cincinnati right there. But it's going to be interesting to see, I think, how some of those players that are located at schools in those large areas do versus the players that are in those real college towns that aren't necessarily competing against a major sports team there.
No,
Right.
that's a great point. And, something I thought about when you said that, like, how would that affect recruiting? If you're somebody that's maybe like that 3-star guy, you could go be on like, a Cincinnati team and you may not get, the limelight as much as some other players. Or, hey, I can go down to UAB in a smaller market, start to play automatically. And it could be a big fish in a littler pond. I don't want to say little pond, but maybe this will help out these smaller markets in recruiting, because you can get these people in and be like, look, you can come in and dominate and you can make money from day one.
Right.
It's funny too. You talk about like even some schools, you find that happy medium. You look at like a Coastal. They're not really competing with anyone.
Yeah.
In the Myrtle Beach area, but there's still a decent amount of people there. So you go throwing Grayson McCall or what's his name, Teddy Gallagher. And their mullets down there at Coastal, all over the wings, and Lord knows all the other shops down there, and see what they can do with that, and let those guys make some cash. I mean, it's not like they're really competing with the players on the Myrtle Beach Pelicans minor league team. I think they can make some dough down there, and there's a lot of people to spend it.
Well, and hell, some of these freshmen hadn't even played a game, and they're already being, deemed the next great, Joe Namath or whatever, this, that, and the other. And they can make money as soon as they step foot on campus in places like that. If they, people view them as, they're going to take our program to the next step. Like, I don't know. I think that'll be interesting to see, especially with this new transfer portal rule. Yes. I wonder if you'll see some more movement in that. And, people say, look, I'm third string at Alabama, but hey, let me go over here to SMU and I can start right away. Who knows?
Well, let's go ahead and transition into the transfer portal, because that was going to be the next thing that we needed to discuss about what the portal means for the G5. And I was going to say kind of the exact what you just said, Josh. Lately we've been seeing, Alabama pulls in the transfer from Ohio State. Honestly, for a couple of days, a few weeks ago, it felt like, the rich are just getting richer, and you're going to have a guy show off in a G5 at a G5 school, and he's going to be recruited, and tampered with to try to get brought up to one of those P5 schools, and you're going to see that. But what I didn't realize until recently is like, hey, it can work the other way too. If there's somebody at a P5 school that's not getting the reps or getting the playing time that he wanted, hey, he can just go to the G5 school down the road, or even an FCS school down the road, and get, playing time right away where he doesn't have to sit on the bench. So,
and that essentially turns into an extension of recruiting almost, because you look at like a year
That's
after
exactly right.
they come to school. I mean, they may have not gotten the playing time. They may have gotten redshirted and not gotten the playing time, and that for whatever reason, they may not like it. I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing, but say that, they decide after that point, well, hey, screw this. I don't like being at whatever school I'm at, Virginia Tech, Alabama. I'm going to transfer out and see what I can find. And then so-and-so school comes in and says, let's say Marshall comes in and says, hey, you were a 4-star recruit. You went to Virginia Tech, but listen, we can get you up here. We think we've got a spot for you. We can get you in, get you some playing time. And, oh, by the way, here in West Virginia, you don't have a lot to compete with, and we could probably get your name out there and you can make some cash. What do you think?
We can put you on the billboard. Come on.
Yeah. Like, those are both pitches right there. So bring them in, and I mean, then they've got their guy, right?
Hey, and speaking of Marshall, Josh, we know how well Charles Huff can recruit. You know how he did at Alabama. Yeah. So he's on the phone right now at Marshall trying to get those guys.
Dude, it. And I agreed with you, John. At first, I thought, this is just the rich getting richer. But to be honest, this may be that equalizing change that kind of maybe takes a little bit away from the P5, gives it over into the G5's favor. But just because of that, I mean, look at Alabama's roster. I mean, they got 4 and 5 stars all the way down to the third, fourth string, and these people aren't getting playing time. Shoot, they'll just go over to these G5 teams. I think it's going to help close the gap. And if you put that in combination with this proposed new playoff, I mean, I don't know if there's been a more exciting time to be a G5 fan right now,
And you throw NIL on top of that where I can go make some money right away. Hey.
And the other thing, too, like every school, no matter what size you are, every school, I would say, has a prominent alumni that works with some sort of major business. So
absolutely.
Say that they've got that alumni that says, hey, you go tell so-and-so if he comes to our school, I want to put him in a commercial for my company and I want to give him some money for it. That's just another recruiting pitch for your coach.
Yeah, exactly. You're exactly right.
And I mean, they are going to have the NCAA, or Congress, somebody's going to have to step in and put some type of limits on, how much money these players can make, because I mean, the only thing that I worry about going back to NIL is, these P5 schools, they have more money, they have more donors, most of the time. So yeah, I'm just worried that, it could go the other way where the rich do get richer in that aspect. But hopefully, I think they have to put some type of limit on it. But we'll see. We do have one more thing that we want to just congratulate the G5 players that were drafted in the NFL draft just a couple months ago. Baker, you got a list for us to get some shout outs of some G5 players that were drafted in the first couple rounds?
I do. So, we had about 8 of them, it looks like, here in the first 3 rounds, and that's kind of what I went off of. Sorry for you guys that maybe were drafted in some of the later rounds, but hey, we're just focusing in on 1 through 3. Right now, you had round 1 at pick 16, Zaven Collins from Tulsa went to the Cardinals. So that was your first guy. Big deal there. That was pretty early. At number 28, Peyton Turner from Houston went to the Saints. Zaven Collins was a linebacker. Peyton Turner was a DN. And it's funny, you'll notice, too, out of all these, almost every one of them are defensive players.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. In the first 3 rounds, every one of them except for 1 was a defensive player. So 7 of the 8. But yeah, round 2, Richie Grant out of UCF, safety to the Falcons. Also round 2, pick 56, your wide receiver, your lone offensive guy, Dwayne Eskridge from Western Michigan, went to the Seahawks there. Round 3, you had cornerback Aaron Robinson from UCF to the Giants. You had Milton Williams, defensive tackle from Louisiana Tech, going to the Eagles. Malcolm Kuntz from Buffalo, outside linebacker, to the Raiders. Brandon Stevens, cornerback, SMU, to the Ravens. So, like I said, 7 defensive players, 1 offensive guy. I don't know what it says, but hey, sounds like we're playing some pretty good D down in the old G5 level, right?
Take that, Big 12.
Yeah, where you at?
Where you at?
Even Maction guys, I know they like to score points up there, but hey, I'm looking here, and we had a Maction defender there going from Buffalo. Then again,
nice.
they are kind of linebacker U over there in the MAC, producing Khalil Mack a few years back also. So.
Right.
Oh, that's awesome.
Awesome.
Congrats to those guys.
Yes, and I do want to give one more shout out. In the 4th round, the 16th pick, Jordan Smith out of UAB. Just wanted to throw that in.
I was waiting on that. I knew that was coming.
Well, all right, guys. Hope you enjoyed this episode of the G5 Beat and the new G5 Beat 2.0. Hope you guys liked it. Make sure that you're following us on Twitter at twitter.com/the G5 Beat. Make sure you're following us. And make sure you're subscribed or following us on a podcast platform, whether that be Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Spotify, like all the other ones I mentioned earlier. Make sure you're subscribe so when the conference previews start dropping next month, you'll get that in your feed automatically. And more importantly, too, make sure you spread the word with your fan base, message boards. Just try to spread the word about the G5 Beat, because the G5 Beat is back. And, we are ready for a full year to go in and commit, this season. And we just can't wait to see what happens this football season. Last year was a little hectic. We all were kind of in and out of the season. But this year we're ready for things to get back to normal and just ready to talk some G5 football with you guys. So on that note, guys, we'll see you next time for our Sun Belt preview coming in July. But make sure you guys stay safe, and we'll see you next time.